After many months, multiple story arcs, a miniseries, a collaboration between two writers, and some delays, we have at last arrived at IDW Sonic issue 50. For those wondering, after all that build-up, which admittedly could have been paced better, how are they going to resolve all this in a mere 20 pages? Fear not, this is an extended issue, which makes sense given that this is a comic milestone. Now before I go on, I will warn you that there will be major spoilers from this point forward. If this is your first time visiting this channel, or if you haven't seen any of my videos in a long time, first of all, welcome and welcome back, and second, since this is the payoff issue, I will be approaching this review as if viewers have seen/read all of the prior build-up issues. If you don't want to feel lost, I'd recommend looking at issues 45 through 49 and the 4-part Imposter Syndrome miniseries before continuing. For everyone else, instead of recapping everything up to this point, I will introduce all of the main players of this issue. If you want to go ahead and skip straight to the summary, here's the time code. First of all, we have the trio of Sonic the Hedgehog, Miles Tails Per Hour, and Belle the Tinkerer. They're heading for the city of Eggtropolis to investigate a mysterious signal that's calling all the badniks to this one location. That's because it's the work of former Eggman assistant Dr. Starline, who successfully took over the Eggman Empire and is broadcasting the signal specifically to lure in Sonic and Tails for his trap. This brings us to our next players, Dr. Starline's creations, Surge the Tenric, and Kit the Fennec, made specifically to counter our heroes. Unfortunately for Starline, after these two learned more about their horrific creations in Imposter Syndrome issue 3, they rebelled. They successfully tricked Starline into thinking they're still loyal to him, and are using the opportunity to wipe him out, along with Sonic, Tails, and our final player, Dr. Eggman. He escaped the takeover, and is powering up one of his old mechs for his own counterattack against Starline. This ought to be fun. Let's get started. Sonic, Tails, and Belle enter the city, with Sonic asking Belle if she wants to still back out given what happened to her last issue. Belle, though, is determined to see this through to the end. Meanwhile, in the control tower, Orbot informs Starline about the trio's arrival, and Starline orders him to tell Surge and Kit to engage them immediately. Starline then takes the time to revel in his victory, and he believes that he'll soon force Eggman by his side. He seems very excited about this prospect. Well, that dream's dashed as Eggman arrives in his chosen mech, the Egg Emperor. How very fitting given the circumstances. Starline activates his tricore to fight back, all while stating that he didn't want to embarrass Eggman like this. Sonic, Tails, and Belle briefly look at the fight from a distance, until Belle spots something below. Metal Sonic, currently offline thanks to what Surge and Kit did to him in Imposter Syndrome 4. Belle wants to help him, and Sonic says, okay. Tails, though, reminds him about the last time they helped Metal Sonic, and how it didn't work out. At this point, I'm still not sure if they know that Metal Sonic was the linchpin in restoring Eggman back to his former self, after Starline mind-screwed him. But for them, going back to Eggman in general was bad enough for the heroes. Although, Metal did help out Sonic during the climax of the Metal Virus arc, and Sonic probably had that in mind when he decided to let Belle work on him. It ultimately doesn't matter as the two have bigger things to worry about. Sonic is suddenly whisked away with only electricity left behind, and Tails is dragged away by water tentacles. This leaves Belle alone with the deactivated Metal Sonic at the mercy of the brainwashed badniks. And one of them is a slicer too. Joy. At this point, the comic will jump between the different fights between the originals and the imposters. For simplicity's sake, I will summarize each fight one at a time. Let's start with Eggman vs. Starline, since it was already in progress. As he's hunting down Starline, Eggman reveals that he's figured out who was really responsible for the raids on his facilities back in the Bad Guys miniseries. Starline realizes that his tricore is not enough, and decides to fight fire with fire. He guesses where Eggman's mech hangar is located, and makes a beeline for it. So which mech did he choose? The Egg Robo from Sonic Lost World. Time for a mech battle. During this, Starline insists that his plan can work, and that they can rule the world together. Former or not, if Starline really understands his idol, then he should realize he doesn't share power. All he's really doing right now is wasting Eggman's time and wrecking his stuff. After Eggman trashes the Egg Robo, Starline utilizes the one attack capable of destroying the Egg Emperor, a Tri-Core Blast. Oh, but Eggman was counting on this. While the Egg Emperor is destroyed again, the process depleted the Tri-Core of all its power. Starline attempts to hypnotize Eggman, but Eggman counters by pulling his goggles over his eyes. Starline's shocked that Eggman actually paid attention in the past about all the goodies his glove can do. In one final desperate move, Starline tries striking Eggman with his heel spurs. Eggman, however, grabs his leg and slams him to the ground like a rag doll. Yeah, people forget that Eggman can be surprisingly strong. Afterwards, he's confronted by Belle and a reactivated Metal Sonic. Earlier, she managed to find a hiding spot to repair him. In order to block the control signal, she used herself as a router and let the Zeddy Zapper do its thing. Thanks to this connection, he recognized her as his sister and agrees to take her directly to Eggman using the egg net to guide them. Which brings us to this scene. Belle is here to say her final goodbye and vows to help all robots abandoned by Eggman. When Eggman learns how Belle bypassed Starline's control signal while fixing Metal Sonic, he gives her a choice. Join him or return to Sonic and his friends. Belle has already chosen Sonic, and with that, Eggman and Metal Sonic leave. The fight between Eggman and Starline is causing the area to collapse, but Starline is too broken to notice. All that work he's done was for nothing. And that's the last we see of him as debris falls on top of him. Let's move over to Tails vs. Kit. Tails believes this is a mistake, and Kit responds that he was designed to take him out. As Tails dodges the water tentacles, he compliments Kit's control over them and the tech behind it. This leads to Tails wanting to find some common ground between the two, like how not everyone appreciates your gifts, and the right kind of support can help you become a better person. This act of kindness is confusing Kit. Tails recognizes this and hopes to handle the situation carefully. They call a truce and Tails asks what's going on with the Badniks. Kit says it's all Starline's doing. When Tails brings up the time Starline almost kidnapped him back in Chow Races and Badnik bases, and asked if the doctor hurt him in any way, Kit briefly lists all the things Starline did to him before declaring his hatred of the guy. Tails wants to stop Starline's plan, and it seems Kit's on board with this. Until Tails mentions finding Sonic. This triggers Kit's conditioning. He won't let anyone interfere in the fight between Surge and Sonic, and the two resume chasing each other. Tails can't dodge Kit forever, and he doesn't have to. If Tails' calculations are correct, Kit should run out of water reserves right about now. This gives Tails the opening to shut down the water pack, and inadvertently Kit. Well, that's one way to end a fight. Now for the big event, Sonic vs. Surge. Surge forces Sonic into an abandoned building, and when he asks who she is, Surge gives a long-winded response. Because of Sonic's moral code that won't let him kill his enemies in the past, in a way, she exists because of Sonic. And because the people love it when Sonic does the same thing over and over, Surge tells him she's going to end all of it. Jeez, all Sonic wanted was a name. But don't worry, he eventually got it. And so the two start battling across the room. At the moment, they're evenly matched. Sonic's having a good time. For him, it's been a while since he had this kind of fight. Surge, on the other hand, sees this as a fight to the death. When Sonic gains the high ground, he lectures Surge on how he rolls, which involves seeing the world, living in the moment, and enjoying the thrills that come with adventuring. He wants to give everyone the chance to do the same, even his enemies. Surge actually considers getting on board with Sonic's way of thinking, but she interprets this as the freedom to tear down the world that discarded her. In her twisted logic, if she was a volunteer, her life must have been awful beforehand, and if she was kidnapped, someone would have tried to find her at this point. Now that she's fully committed to the let the world burn methodology, the fight resumes. Surge utilizes her electric tornado move to finish off Sonic, but his simple Sonic spin dash knocks her out of it. She's apparently so winded, she falls over a cliff. As she holds onto a piece of debris over the cliff face, Sonic tries to pull her up. Instead, she gives him a screw you jolt. Debris falls from the top, and while Sonic dodges it, Surge apparently didn't. Sonic returns to the location where they were ambushed, followed shortly by Tails and an unconscious Kit, and then Belle riding a full-bore Badnik from Sonic 4 Episode 2. As they update each other on what's happened, they are interrupted by Eggman on the PA system. Despite the mess Starline and the imposters made, he's still going to be a gracious host to his guests by unleashing a city full of Badniks on them. And thus issue 50 comes to a close. It's not surprising the game characters won their fights. They're game characters. But if you put that aside, the reason the imposters lost this day is because the originals had something they did not: experience. Starline believed Eggman was a fool for not paying attention to his actions and thought he knew better. But he learned the hard way that not only was Eggman paying attention and deducing his actions, he made his own counters. Eggman even stated that the very reason he chose the Egg Emperor was to deprive Starline of his primary weapon, and he was prepared to pull this move ever since Starline raided the core facility. Obviously, both of them were using the events of Sonic Heroes to base their actions on. Yeah, Eggman was locked up through most of those events, but remember, he was still able to guide the Chaotix via walkie-talkie, and thus have knowledge of how things worked during that period. Starline had to look them up after the fact, the same way he looked up info about the Zeti during the Metal Virus arc, and looked how well that worked out for him. And that's only part of the bigger reason for Starline's downfall. He was laser focused on besting Eggman, subduing Eggman, trying to be better than Eggman. But as others have pointed out, even from Eggman himself, his obsession ultimately blinded him to the bigger picture. That's why he keeps losing allies, and that's what originally cost him his warping gem. He'd rather find, in his mind, a better solution than follow along with another Sonic/Eggman Save the World team-up. Now granted, Eggman was focused on beating Sonic and his friends, but to me, after years of back and forth conflict, Eggman's gained a sense of patience before acting on any brand new scheme. Starline, for all his talk of preparation, appropriated some of Eggman's stuff and took his idea of creating knockoffs rather than trying for something completely different. This is because, being an Eggman fanboy, from what we've seen, it's all he knows. Even when trying to break out of it, he's always pulled back in. It's only in his supposed final moments that he realized the futility of everything he's worked for. So is this the end of Dr. Starline? It can go either way at this point. All we see is debris collapsing in on where he was. We don't see a body. Sometimes in fiction, that means a person is not dead. Then again, this is an all-ages book, and they want to spare the younger members of the audience the messy details. If this is Starline's last hurrah, it is kind of appropriate to see him at his highest high, then witnessing the crash, and seeing him reduced to a maddening state, reminiscent of Eggman in Archie Sonic issue 200, just before being buried. If he did survive, perhaps he'll finally gain some proper experience. The sad thing is, either way, he'll never know his creations betrayed him. Tails is able to win in two ways using experience. The more obvious method is stalling until Kit runs out of water, then disabling him. It is a testament to the Fox's superior flying and technical skills, as well as outsmarting his opponent. Another win, or at least opening the door to another possible win, is trying to connect with Kit. I believe Tails was genuinely trying to reach out to Kit because he does see a lot of his earlier self in the Fennec. He understands what it's like to be unique and offers to help him. This is very poignant given Tails' backstory of being bullied is brought back into the forefront thanks to recent Sonic media, and that it was his encounter with Sonic that Tails learned that being different isn't so bad. Now he's trying to pass that lesson on to Kit. I mean, let's face it, Kit was in a worse position than Tails. Having his past stolen by Starline and made into a hydro-powered yes-man to Surge is something that cannot be cured overnight. But the door is opened. We'll see where this goes now that Kit's separated from Surge and for the moment is with the heroes. One case where experience might have made things worse was during the Sonic vs. Surge fight. Sonic was nonchalant while fighting Surge because he's been through this song and dance with others who wanted to try to destroy the world in the past. One speedster in particular. To him, he just sees another troubled individual that he hopes can become better. If we were able to hand him a copy of the Imposter Syndrome miniseries, he'd learn that Surge is not just any troubled individual. She thought she was confident and cocky about her purpose in life, only to learn it was all a lie. She wanted to annihilate the world as a response to what she learned in Imposter Syndrome issue 3, and thanks to Sonic's words of encouragement, she doubles down on the idea. Hey Sonic, I know you mean well, but don't give helpful advice to green psychotic speedsters. That kind of action gave your Archie counterpart and his friends a massive migraine down the line. And guess what? Major spoiler alert. Later issues not only confirm Surge's survival, she's trying to gain more power in an effort to destroy Sonic and his friends. I respect your convictions to try and reform your enemy, Sonic, and you did have some success, but Surge and others before her had a point. Killing your enemies, or at least incapacitating them so they'll never be a threat again, would have been a better solution in the long run. But hey, he is the hero of the franchise, and the franchise does need conflict to keep going. Hopefully in the future, they can tone down Sonic's merciful shtick. Belle had a smaller role than I expected, but it was still significant. She gained closure by directly confronting Eggman and declaring that she will help all of his discarded robots. Plus, she helped fix her big brother, which inadvertently gave Eggman the means to regain control of his forces. I think that's why he didn't scrap her right then and there. You could argue that there might have been a tiny bit of tinker left, and that might have spared Belle a terrible fate. Or both. Admittedly, I do like the brief interaction between Metal Sonic and Belle. I just wish we could have seen more between the Metal Destroyer and the Wooden Builder. There are of course the occasional Easter eggs, ranging from lines from other Sonic sources, to the reuse of the final egg elevators, and then there's all the different Badnik types. This panel alone has egg pawns, motobugs, spinners, slicers, caterpillars, crab meats, and 2 different types of buzz bombers. So what do I think of issue 50 as a milestone event? I would say, if you're expecting a game changer like how some Archie milestones changed the status quo, temper your expectations. Now as a climax to a long-going story arc, I think it did the job well. It establishes where certain characters may be going in the future, has a possible poetic end to an established villain, and the game characters get a chance to shine during their fights. Eggman in particular. His conflict with Starline reminded me of a story arc in Sonic Universe where Archie Eggman had to deal with a former lackey who wanted to take over the Empire, only to beat him into submission and imprison him. I don't know what's worse, Snively being imprisoned a broken man, or Starline going bonkers before getting crushed. Back to this issue's fights. I couldn't even begin to describe them during the summary. You'll have to see them for yourselves. So I'm going to give a round of applause to Ian Flynn, who came back to write the story, Adam Bryce Thomas, who drew the whole thing, and the multiple colorists who tried to match the art as best they could. And to briefly touch upon this, the fact that this series made it to issue 50 is amazing. Whatever your thoughts on the overall writing, it's 1,000 times more coherent than the first 50 issues of the main Archie book. To be fair, that series at the time had multiple writers that don't share notes or continuity with one another, compared to the 2 main writers and better forms of communication this series utilizes. The comic's immediate future is looking pretty good right now. You may think I'm being very positive right now, given the current state of the industry, and you're probably right. I'm just following Sonic's advice of living in the moment. The day will come when IDW Sonic will come to an end, but until that day comes, I will enjoy the ride, while giving the series a bit of critique. The battle for the Empire may be over, but the battle to escape Eggtropolis is only beginning. Come back next time as I take a look at IDW Sonic issue 51. Even when mind-controlled, Orbot and Cubot know to cower when an angry Eggman approaches.